Coming to you from Farmer Dave's Kitchen here in Drake, Massachusetts, I'm Stacey.
I'm Denise.
And we're here to help you prepare your share. It's time for more pickles. Pickles were one of the earliest mobile foods and have been around for thousands of years. Pickling was a necessity as it preserved foods for a long period of time.
Pickles are created by immersing veggies or fresh fruits, yes, we said fruit, in an acidic liquid which preserves them. Cucumber pickles are the first thing many of us think of when we hear the word pickles. In previous VEGISODEs, we have addressed refrigerator pickling of various veggies and fruits such as melon balls and blueberries.
And what did we do last time? We did onions and we did
watermelon radish.
Watermelon radish. And so, I mean, as far as refrigerator pickling goes, you can do anything. In this particular VEGISODE, we're addressing water bath canning of cucumber pickles. It's not a difficult method to master. Water bath canning is a technique based on science. There are set steps, and as long as you follow those set steps, it's a very safe way to preserve foods.
Right, so a high acid environment is needed as well as a certain processing time in the canner. This is the canner. This makes the product shelf stable. The best way to start is with a tested recipe. So check out www.freshpreserving.com or www.foodinjars.com for recipes and more detailed information.
They both have many, many recipes that you can use, and it doesn't take any of the it takes the guesswork out of.
Right.
You don't want to guess with this stuff at all.
Do your tested recipes first before you try to master your grandmother's recipe.
Correct. We've received feedback that many of you want to try canning but aren't sure about the investment in materials or the time commitment. As far as the investment, start small. You can buy a complete kit from Ball online and in many stores. You can also use any deep pot that you already own with a cover. The important part is when you have it needs to be deep enough so that when you have the jars in here, the water level has to come up an inch above the jars.
Okay.
So if you're gonna start small and do pint or half pint containers, your pan doesn't necessarily have to be as deep.
Right.
If you're going to go all in and try and do quarts of tomatoes and things like that, then you're going to need a deeper pot. So start simple, master the technique.
Okay, sounds good. So you will need a trivet or a canning basket that keeps the jars from sitting on the bottom. Having one with handles makes things easier. Canning utensils set are sold for $10 or $12, and this is what we're using. So have canning tongs, skewer, butter knife, ladle, funnel, kind of get everything in the kit.
So we've got canning tongs here. These are our funnels. The funnels are great because they're allowing us to put the brine, or if you were doing jam, into the jar without getting it all over the edges of the jar.
Correct.
A little less cleanup. Any kind of a ladle, I love this ladle because of the shape of it. It makes the transferring of the liquid a little bit easier. I also have a spatula and there's a butter knife here. Once you get everything packed into the jars, you want to be able to get rid of any air bubbles.
Right. And we'll show that.
And we'll show that as we're doing it.
Excellent.
So the amount and the size of the canning jars are going to be dictated by the recipe that you use. When I first started canning, I did only pickles in pint jars and in small batches. It kept it from becoming overwhelming. I swapped out spices, but I kept that base recipe the same. That is how I practice my canning technique again and again and again.
Awesome. So this is the technique we are showing you today. A small batch of pickles that will not be an all-day project. Unless you want it to be, of course.
I've gone on canning benders before, so.
Oh boy. Okay, so the setup. So a water bath canner with liquid and a rack, or a deep pot with a lid and a rack in the bottom, or even a trivet. So the pot needs to be deep enough, like Stacey had just mentioned, so that the jars will be covered by an inch of water minimum.
Right. A saucepan large enough to boil your brine and warm it up. You're going to wind up putting, it's usually some type of vinegar, water, and salt. So you want to bring it up to a really rapid simmer, and then you can turn it off so that you're not pouring the hot brine into the glasses. Glass preserving jars with lids and bands that have been washed in hot soapy water. You also want to inspect the jars, even if they're new. Make sure there's no chips or cracks. Your lids and your bands. Basically, you can reuse your bands. You can reuse the jar.
Right.
These need to be new every time. These are what is going to be sealing your jar. You can reuse these for other purposes if you're making dressings or you're doing refrigerator pickles where you're not relying on a shelf-stable seal.
Okay.
That's totally fine to reuse them. But if you're relying on that seal, you need to make sure that you use new ones every time, and they're sold separately so you can keep buying these.
Okay. Very good to know. Okay, so utensils. Ladle, funnel, measuring cups and spoons, hot jar tongs, knife cutting board for your produce prep. So pretty basic.
Pretty basic. So we have everything here. These are your funnels, your tongs. We're all set to go.
Beautiful. Okay, so then you're going to need your produce, your herbs, and your spices. We've already gone ahead and cut up our pickling cubes, and we have some of our herbs and spices here in front of us.
All ready to go.
All ready to go.
So now, any other items you like to have, keep very close by. Something that we're doing today, which you may not do at home, it's just because we're here in front of you. The canner is here, the brine is here. If I'm going to be moving hot jars, we have a tray with a towel on it.
Right.
This is just going to also insulate the bottom of the jars, because once we fill them up and they boil and we take them out, we want to make sure that they're not shocked.
Right.
And this just makes things easier for transport so we don't get burned.
Perfect. That is a very good tip.
Another reason for the towel is the extra insulation for the jars. Once the jars are removed from the canner, they should be left undisturbed. In other words, don't shake them around. You can move them from place to place and put them in the corner. That's totally fine. Okay. So many kitchens now have marble and granite countertops. Those are cold. If you leave your kitchen window open and there's a cool breeze, all these things are hitting those jars, which are warm from being removed from the canner.
Okay.
This just provides an extra level of safety so you don't wind up cracking the jar. So if you put the jar on a towel, whether it's on a tray or not, on a towel, and then have another towel just to throw over it while they're coming to room temperature, it decreases the chance of you getting a cracked jar.
Perfect.
And then you won't be sad, because then you have to get rid of the pickles.
You don't want to be sad.
You don't want to be sad.
Okay, so the recipe for 4 pint jars of garlic dill pickles is as follows. So 8 to 10 pickling cucumbers, about 3 pounds cut into thick coins. Really our preference is the thicker coin, just so that it really kind of stays crunchy. But again, do and try whatever you'd like. 2 cups of apple cider vinegar or a white distilled vinegar, 2 cups of water, 2 tablespoons of pickling salt. You can use kosher salt, just don't use table salt. 4 heads of fresh dill or 4 teaspoons of dill seed. So the seed works just fine if you can't get fresh. 4 garlic cloves halved, a 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flake, which is optional.
I absolutely love the red pepper flake in these. So
do I.
Once you wash the jars, you place them in the canner with the cold water.
Okay.
Then you turn the canner on, and you're basically bringing the jars up to temperature along with the water.
Together.
And then it comes up to a boil, everything all together, so there's no shocking. And you're going to let that boil for maybe about 5 minutes, and that pretty much takes care of the jars.
Perfect.
And if you leave it in there for 10 minutes, it's not a big deal. You just want it to come up to boil.
Okay, so measure out the brine mixture, which is your vinegar, water, and salt, and place into the saucepan.
Now we've done this, so I'm going to grab it just to show you.
Okay.
And what I like to do is once the water and the vinegar come up to a simmer, then I add the salt, and you stir it. It dissolves the salt right away.
Perfect.
So you know what? I'm going to put that right here, because we just did this, so this is a little hot.
Oh yeah.
There we go.
Smells like pickles already.
And it totally smells like pickles. Now, the difference between pickling salt and kosher salt is just the texture. Pickling salt goes right into solution. Kosher salt may take a little longer, but if you're bringing it up to a boil, it really shouldn't matter.
It should be fine.
No,
Okay.
should be fine.
Great.
So now the canner has been brought to a boil. The brine mixture has been brought to a boil.
Yes.
I'm going to cut the heat on the canner. We're taking the top off the canner.
Okay.
So I don't burn myself here.
Yes, no burning.
I'm going to put that right there. Now, I'm going to remove the jars. First thing I'm doing, the gloves.
Yeah.
We have that basket that's in here.
Sure.
Now the basket comes with handles for this one, and that actually goes right on the side, which is handy so you're not having to go all the way in.
Sure does.
If you're doing a different one and you have a trivet, it's not a big deal. It's just a different process. I'm gonna take these off.
That
these
was
are
clever.
Tongs. Now these have water in them. So I'm gonna brace it just to get the water out. And this is gonna come right over here. On here.
Very carefully here.
Okay. So same thing, make sure you have a nice secure. And then I like to do this with the basket up. That way, if for some reason I lose my grip, it's not going all the way to the bottom of the canner.
Excellent.
And if you do lose your grip, just step back and let it fall.
Okay.
Don't burn yourself. Don't think you're going to be a hero and try and catch it. All right, let me get this.
Excellent.
And I also did 5 jars, even though we said the recipe is for 4.
Okay.
And that's just in case we have extra brine and extra pickles. I figured it's the same process. We might as well have it.
That makes sense.
And it's just 1 extra jar that you processed, and it's not a big deal. There we go.
That works.
Perfect.
So far, I think I can handle this.
It's just being methodical. It's not scary.
Yeah, no, it's just step by step.
It's step by step. And taking your time by having everything prepped ahead of time. You're not putting a super amount of pressure on yourself. And this is also, if you've never canned before, this is a great recipe to use.
Right.
If you're canning jam, you have to have a certain time when you add the pectin, and again, it's all in the prep, but you're still on a clock.
Yep.
Where this, as long as these are warm, this is warm, you're ready, it's a little bit more forgiving.
This is good, I like it. Okay, so now we're going to fill the jars with dill, the garlic cloves, and the RPF if you're using.
Red pepper flakes.
Red pepper flakes.
We have our own name for it.
Then pack the jars tightly with your cucumber slices. So we're filling, we're filling. Would you like some assistance?
I would love some assistance. I'm gonna get the garlic all in here. You can never have too much garlic in your pickles as far as I'm concerned.
Never.
So I would say do like 3.
3 dillies?
3 dillies.
Excellent.
And sometimes it's hard to get the dill in the winter time. So it just, using the dill seed, it's not a huge deal. I'll grab that. I'm gonna put all of them?
Yes.
I think so. Just doing a shake. Yeah. We like spicy, so. You can also do chili in this too. So if you have some jalapenos or you have different things put aside, you can do a slice. You can also put a whole chili in and just not cut it. And what it'll do is just over time, as it's sitting in the vinegar, it'll start to pickle itself.
That's pretty awesome. Okay, so now we're gonna get all the cucumbers in here, yes?
Yeah, let's put the cucumbers right there, and you and I can both reach them. Yeah, it's not bad.
Any special method you recommend?
Get it in there flat.
As flat as possible.
As possible, and what I do is use the butt end of that, and then I'll use this, that way we can push them down if we need to. Because the jars still are a little hot.
Okay. So we want to get as many in here as possible.
Correct.
That's the name of the game.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
And also try and do some smaller slices too. Meaning like diameter size. That way you can fill in the gaps with them. Here we go.
This is fun, Stacey.
And you can really, as long as you keep your ratio the same, you can change out your spices. They do make commercially available pickling spice already mixed. Or honestly, I had a ball. I went to one of the grocery stores that had large containers of all the different things. So buy a commercially available one. It'll tell you what's in it. So then you can go buy them singly. Mustard seed, coriander seed, black peppercorn, trying to think what else. Cumin seed. You can also do celery seed if you wanted to.
Love cumin.
And then you just make your own mix. And doing a small batch like this, you can test out a mix that you've made. Yeah. And it's not a huge time investment or anything.
Or product investment.
Correct.
You just this really wasn't that many.
Correct. And that way you can see if you like it. And then if you don't, no big deal. You just adjust the recipe.
Or if you want to have varieties, maybe you're making them for gift giving and you want to come up with 3 different ones. That's a cool idea too.
Having a nice jar of pickles and then giving the little recipe for what you did.
So cute.
Is a super nice gift.
And it's something that you did yourself.
Right. And then come July, when the pickles are coming out of our ears and we're trying to figure out what to do with them, and you're tired of eating them, this is a fantastic way.
Save them for later.
To use them.
All right,
good. You just want to make sure that you have space on the top.
Like headroom, right?
A little bit of headroom.
We'll take that one back out. Okay.
I think that's probably... Okay. Do we have a tiny one? Yeah, we'll do that.
There we go. Awesome. All right. Okay. So the next step.
Ready?
Ready.
Okay. So the next step is the brine.
Okay.
Okay. So I have the hot stuff. So if you want to just
back up.
Hold that.
I'm not holding that jar.
Oh, Denise, this is like a trust exercise.
All right, I trust you.
You pour it in very slowly, okay? Now this had come to a boil and then I turned it off and I let it sit for a minute. So it's hot, but it's not at the boiling point because you don't want to do that to your jars or your hands.
Oh.
Now you just kind of add it a little bit at a time and you can see it goes really, really full and then it starts draining again. Really, really full.
Oh, yeah.
And draining. I'm going to add just a little bit more.
Smidge. Okay.
Now, headspace is important.
Okay. You said about a 1/2 inch headspace?
The recipe will tell you. This recipe, it's a 1/2 inch headspace between, and that's the top of the product to the rim. So that when
top
you're...
of the product to the rim.
So that once you put that cover on, and you're putting it in there to boil, the boil is forcing the oxygen out of the jar, which is that headspace.
Okay.
And then when it comes out of the boil, the pressure sucks it in, and that's what makes the seal.
And there's your science lesson.
And there's your science lesson for the day.
Stacey loves her science.
All right, here we go.
This is easy, and it's taking a little time to do this, but it's nice that you're doing just the 5 jars.
Correct.
So this is not overwhelming. A nice little afternoon project or a morning project.
If you got up early on a Saturday morning and you had everything ready to go, this
just
could be so
done.
easy to get done, especially if the kids are watching a movie on a Saturday
or still in bed.
Just still in bed. Exactly.
Haven't even gotten up yet.
It's one of these things where it's a nice, and it winds up being a nice gift for people. And honestly, if you grow your own herbs, how much fun would it be to add just different fresh herbs from the garden in here? It's nice to go out to your garden, cut your own herbs. The only thing I think wouldn't put in here is basil.
Yeah.
I think basil would completely melt.
Oh.
And I think it would turn brown, so I don't think basil would be a good choice in this, for this application at least. I know we put it in sauces and in with tomatoes and stuff, but I think for this one, but rosemary would be nice.
Smidge more, not too much.
Thyme would be nice.
Oh yeah.
All right, let's see what we got for headspace. 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. I think this one needs just a touch more.
Yep.
Touch more.
Those look really good.
Touch more. Okay, you want to grab the lids.
Yep.
And the bands.
So we're gonna wipe the rims of the jar and then place the lids on and screw the bands on just fingertip tight.
You know what? They're pretty darn clean because we use the funnel.
Was perfect.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Thank you. Fingertip tight, literally.
Just don't wrench it.
That's all it is. Because if you think about it, you're bringing this to a boil.
Okay.
It's forcing the oxygen out. You need to have that little bit of space. Even though the space is tiny, it's still able to force the oxygen out. So those threads are where that's happening. So if you actually watched it here while it was boiling, you can see all the little bloop, bloop, bloop happening, and that's what's going on.
Pretty cool. Okay.
Okay.
So now, using the tongs, we're gonna lower the jars back into the canner. The water level may need to be adjusted. There needs to be at least 1 inch of water above the jars. So we're gonna put the cover on and then bring to a boil. So we're very carefully putting them back in.
And I'm really glad we had enough, so now we could do 5 jars.
Yeah, this is great.
This is perfect. Here we go. Last one.
All right, they're all in.
Now I don the gloves because that,
slide it back in.
I'm sure that trivet is rocket hot at this point. Come on. All right.
So very
now
carefully
I'm gonna grab that.
lift and put down the bottom.
Very carefully put it in.
Oh, and we still have plenty of water.
Yeah.
Yep, so we don't need to adjust the water. If you did drop that in and the jars were not covered, you would need to add some water to that, but this is in good shape.
And a case when that would happen is if you're using like the quart jars or something like that, because when you put the jars in with no cover on it, you're adding more water to boil it. So now with the displacement, this where we're using the pint jars, it's not so much. So now that they're in,
Here you go, little stove.
wait a minute, here we go.
We'll get that back up.
So we'll have that up, then we will put this on. Now as far as your timing goes, pint jars, 10 minutes. You start the timing, however, once it comes to a rolling boil.
Okay.
So once this comes up to a boil, that's when you start your 10 minutes. If you wanted to do quart jars for some reason, that goes up to 15 minutes.
Okay, and the recipe is gonna tell us this.
Recipe will be extremely specific on that. So give us a second. We're not gonna sit here and talk to you all this time while this is coming to a boil, and then we'll be right back when they're all done.
Once the processing time is up, turn off the heat to the canner and remove the cover.
Here we go. I've already turned off the heat, so the... Ooh, that's hot, huh?
Oh, facial. Let the boiling subside a bit before you attempt to take the jars out with the tongs.
So you know what I think I'm going to do?
Yeah.
Is
Let's get out the gloves.
Get them up. So I'm not fighting with the little handles.
Excellent. Up and at 'em. There we go. Nice.
There we go.
Nice maneuvering, nice maneuvering. So we are going to then gently remove them and place them on our towel. And again, slow and steady as you go here.
And I'm just tipping them slightly to get that water off the top.
Excellent. Oh, I see what you're doing, okay.
Just a little bit to get the pooled water off of it.
Gotcha. And again, the reason we have this towel is a buffer, just in case the counter is a little bit cool, especially if you have a granite countertop or marble. We want this cooling off or coming to room temperature to be just slow and gentle, nothing shocking.
Correct.
Okay. So we're gonna let them sit. You may start to hear the popping as the seal forms. Once they are completely cool, we'll usually check the next morning by pushing down on the lid. So if you hear popping, the seal did not form. So a sealed jar and an unsealed jar demonstration here. So what do we got here, Stace?
This is a brand new jar. That means that there is no seal.
Right.
Okay. Now if I did this on these, which I don't want to, you want to kind of let them sit, it's going to make that noise at this point. Now these were processed before. There is no...
Yeah, those are sealed. No popping, no movement at all.
Okay. Now you have a couple of choices. If tomorrow you approach these and they are basically still popping, you can either reprocess the jars, which basically means, or a jar if it's just one.
Okay.
You get out a canner, or you might be able to do a smaller container. You're going to put them back in and you reprocess them for the entire 10 minutes.
Okay.
Whether you do the one jar or you did 5 jars, it's still 10 minutes.
Okay.
Honestly, it's still fine to eat. You can just pop this in the refrigerator and just have this be the first jar that you eat. It's fine. The cucumbers are sitting in vinegar. They're not gonna go bad. It's just not shelf stable, but it would be fine in the refrigerator. Okay. So those are your two choices.
Okay, that sounds good. And so if there's no popping and your seal has formed, store these jars away from direct light in a cool place and enjoy them within a year for the best taste. As far as safety, just check your seal. If there's a popping noise, it means the seal let go and they must be discarded, as sad as that is.
Right. So if you go to the basement, a lot of people will keep these in a basement or a closet or something like that. Yeah. And you go to grab a jar, whether it's pickles or it's a jar of tomatoes or anything, and you go and you test it and it's popping, it means the seal let go. Yeah. You will get sick if you eat them. Don't even try it, you know.
Better to be safe than sorry.
Better to be safe than sorry at that point.
So we hope that this video encourages you to give canning pickles a try. We also have a VEGISODE on canning jam, which gives additional information on the entire canning process.
There are also great resources out there and books. We had mentioned earlier preserving.com and foodinjars.com. There are several books that are great, and all these recipes are tested. So once again, you know, try it with a tested recipe, and that way, you know, there's no guesswork for you. Absolutely. You can change out your little herbs and spices and garlic and things like that, and it's a safety issue. You don't have to worry about whether or not you can eat it. So
that's true.
We hope you give this a try and jump right in and make some pickles.
Make some pickles. Have fun.